I've got a little bit of a problem here. In fact, I've got about a 1,000-pound dream that's basically I'm holding on to it by its heels as we're leaning over the edge of a bridge about to plunge 500 feet below. Welcome to the Passages from the Heart podcast, a podcast featuring real people sharing real stories about adventure out on the water. I'm your host, Shell Hart. Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Passages from the Heart podcast. I'm sorry it's been a little while since I was last in touch with y'all. There's been lots of things going on, and I just wanted to give you a quick little update on where things are with the starting off of sailing season 2026 in my neck of the woods. I've got a little bit of a problem here. In fact, I've got about a 1,000-pound dream that's basically I'm holding on to it by its heels as we're leaning over the edge of a bridge about to plunge 500 feet below. That's pretty much what things feel like. The 1,000-pound dream is the boat still sitting in my driveway, and I have yet to figure out how I'm going to address some certain very important projects on the boat. Said projects might entail, let me just give you a brief, little bit of a rundown here. And actually, it might help to give you a little of a background story as well before we get into the actual projects. This boat that I purchased is a 2024 Com-Pac Legacy. I purchased it from the former Com-Pac dealer located in Houston, Texas, from a gentleman by the name of Jeff Lynn, who has been running Lynn sailboats for, goodness, I think almost 60 years. The long and the short of it is, as at the time, which would have been around November, oh, maybe it was October, somewhere in there of last year, 2025, I decided that I wanted to buy this newer Legacy. There was actually another for sale in New York State. I think that company is called the Sailboat Shop, not to be confused with the Sailboat Company, which was another Com-Pac dealer out of North Carolina with Keith Scott, who has very sadly passed on. But Keith was a mentor of mine, and he is the gentleman from whom I had purchased Charm, my Com-Pac 23. So getting back to Lynn sailboats and the Legacy. So there was this 2024 Legacy, brand new, sitting in his lot, and a Com-Pac friend of mine, Steven, shout out to Steven, he happened to be at the dealership and knew that I was interested in looking for a Legacy, and so had sent me some pictures of this one. And of course, I immediately fell in love with the boat. The one that was in New York was also, or I think it may still be in New York actually, is also extremely lovely. However, the the big selling point for me with the one in Houston was that it came with a roller furling head sail, which of course I could always convert the other one to do that if I wanted to, but I'm kind of a one-stop shopping kind of person. And so to me, it made more sense. And plus, I have to admit, although there is the saying, a good boat is never a bad color, this particular boat was the same color scheme, if you will, as my very first Legacy Sunflower, aka Sunny. So it kind of made my heart go beat a little faster, pitter patter when I saw this boat. The boat, I chose, well, actually, I don't really think I had a choice to get the boat bottom painted and to have that all done, which normally, like for example, how I had done with the first Com-Pac Legacy I had, my 2021 Miss Sunny. She came from a dealer out of New Jersey, G Winter Sailing, with Don Huffle. And they offered services to, you know, treat the bottom of the boat if you were going to slip the boat, which I was planning to do. So I had them do all that legwork before the boat was delivered to me. So with this particular 2024 model in Houston, Jeff's kind of a one-man operation, and he didn't have anybody to help with the project with respect to bottom painting the boat. So, I just didn't have an opportunity to do that. And I'm a little bit kicking myself for that now, not having someone help me address this problem because it's preventing me basically from splashing the boat. Although I wasn't planning to keep the boat in the slip per se, because I was going to have Charm, my Compact 23, in the slip, but I sold Charm. Oh, I guess it was in mid-April or so, along with my other older Compact Legacy, the 2008 Legacy that I had. So I've sold both of those boats, and they're with incredibly um, excited, super, I don't know, just I know these people are going to take great care of the boats. And so I felt really very confident with these sales with these particular buyers. I just, it makes me feel kind of more settled knowing that the boats are going to be enjoyed. And that's really what it's all about. So, um, I had this slip, or I still have this slip that's sitting there that's paid for this season. But the predicament is this boat that I have, this 2024 model. Like I said, I didn't get it bottom painted. And a lot of my sailing friends, a lot of compact friends of mine have all said, oh, it's actually more desirable to have a boat that's, the bottom has not been painted, for resale purposes. I don't plan on selling the boat, although I'll come back to that later on in the conversation. But the point is that I learned that even if I'm not bottom painting the boat, a brand new boat's gel coat apparently is evidently very, very porous. And if not treated appropriately before splashing the boat, um, let's just put it this way, there's a potential for blistering to occur. Even if you're not going to be keeping the boat in the water all the time, like planning on trailer sailing this season. So the boat's exposure to the water would be for a few hours at a time, barring maybe a couple overnights here and there. However, even despite that short amount of contact with the water, the former compact dealer out of Michigan, who's Rob Voigt of the Great Lakes Sailboat Company, he, recommended still, like I said, treating the bottom of the boat with something to, help prevent blistering and that sort of thing. So I found this really cool product from a friend on the Compact Yacht Owners Forum. Shout out to Crazy Carl. And this product is called VS as in Sam. So Victor Sam 721. And it's something that evidently a lot of sailors who race use for treating the bottom of their boats because it helps them to go faster, apparently, reduces friction, I guess, on the water. But that's not my reason for using it. My reason for using it is that it will help seal the gel coat, which would help in turn protect it from any blistering or exposure to blistering risks, if you will. So the cool thing about it is it's colorless, it's clear, in other words, and you apply it like how you would basically a wax. So it's liquid, and then you rub it on the boat's hull with, you can actually even use it on the top sides apparently, but you rub it on in circular motions or motion, and just wait for it to get that little bit of a haze, and then you can buff it off to a shine. So it sounded like it would be a great product for me to use in my situation. And also it's not so toxic. I think that's another thing, is that, certain bodies of water have restrictions about what types of, what you can put on the bottom of your boat. And I guess evidently this is more eco-friendly. It's an eco-friendly sort of product, and not to mention more eco-friendly for using it. And you're not going to be putting on a hazmat suit, so to speak, like when you're sanding and repainting the bottom of a boat with anti-fouling. At least that's what I usually do. Anyway, so the the predicament really lies in the fact that I'm really at this crossroads of trying to figure out how to safely, the operative word being safely, lift the boat off the trailer so that I can access the areas of the boat's hull where normally it's touching the bunks, and also the bottom of the keel, so where it rests on the keel board. And I have talked to lots of different people, lots of different sailors, pros, amateurs. I've called different uh, 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 people who work at marinas that I know to ask for advice. And I'm really not feeling like I'm getting, I don't know, I don't feel like I'm getting the solution that I need. So the boat's just sitting there waiting for me to do this work on it, and I refuse to splash the boat until I get this done because I want the boat to be properly treated, you know? So it's protecting my investment, if you will, but it's also just more importantly just protecting the boat because I don't want to have to deal with something like blisters later down the road if I can prevent that from happening somehow through using this product. Having said all of that, um, the one product that I came across, I'm not recalling the name of the company offhand, but I'll have to look it up again and I can include it in the show notes. I'll also include that VS721. It's from a company called Aurora Marine, and they're out of Canada. And they have a great customer support, I should say. I think the guy's name is Richard, maybe, who owns the company. And I think he's called like Captain Richard or Skipper Richard or something like that. And, you know, you can talk with him directly and ask questions. And it really was very helpful for me in deciding to go ahead with this particular product. But at any rate, getting back to this other solution for lifting the boat, there's a company, I believe it's out east in the US. And from what I recall, I'd have to again look up the name of the company and what the product is called specifically, but it's some sort of equipment that attaches to your trailer. And you can then, like, think of it like jack stands that attach to your trailer. But the caveat is you have to have your trailer's frame has to be fall within a certain parameters of these dimensions that this particular equipment can work with. And so I have not measured to see if this is going to, you know, be work for my or be a viable solution, but I think it probably will be. But I need to measure to be sure that the frame is going to be again compatible with it. But the idea is that you attach, I think it's four different, I'll just call them jack stands, even though that's not what they technically are called, but they attach to different areas of the trailer, and it allows you to then lift the boat off the trailer, not having to drop the bunks, in other words, because I looked into that because that's some of the solutions that were presented to me about using 2x4s and putting them under the rub rail. Or one person also said just tie off one side of the boat to the trailer and then drop the bunk on the other side. And all of these, I think I've even seen people do it on YouTube videos, but I still just feel like I just felt a bit not so confident in that solution working well for me. And I you know, I needed something else. So that's why I did some more digging and came across this particular product. The only trouble is, it's really expensive. It's like, I think almost a couple grand. So I don't, you know, I don't know. Is it worth it to spend all of this money and then forever here forward? We have these, you know, stands to help me with whatever I need that concerns the bottom of the boat. And that can be a lot of different things, right? So in a sense, it could be really worth it. And I know that if I was at a marina to have them lift the boat, you know, that can sometimes be upwards of two, three, four, $500. So I mean, maybe they really would pay for themselves in the long run. But I don't know. I'm just not really sure what to do. And the more that I am in this conundrum, I'm not sailing, which really bums me out considerably. So anyway, while that's going on, I have, and I think I might have told you about this last year or written about it on my blog at least. I've been thinking about getting even though technically I think my Com-Pac Legacy would be considered a dinghy sailor because it's only 16 and a half feet. I don't really think of it as a dinghy, you know, but when I say dinghy sailor, I'm talking something like, a Sunfish um, or more what I've been really sort of salivating over is this little Gig Harbor Boatworks 10-foot navigator. Um, Check it out on their website. They're a really cool company. They're still making all sorts of small vessels. Many of them are sailing vessels, rowing vessels, and some for, just as tenders for larger boats as well. But they're not inexpensive, folks, but I'm happy to see that there's still somebody out there in the United States making sailboats. Because I don't know if you've heard the word on the street. I just got an email from a friend who sent me a link to a Substack a Substack page for, I'll include this in the show notes too, but some guy, I can't remember his name, but he just did this whole write-up about Catalina Yachts. And so there has been a lot of speculation about what the future of that company was looking like. I mean, to the point where I talked with a dealer who had the impression last fall that they were just basically relocating their operation someplace else and they'd resume building, to then also hearing stories from some other folks in the industry, shall we say, who found out that some of these boats that were at wherever the facility, I guess it was in Florida, was that there were some boats that were finished, but that were not being released to their whoever dealers that had purchased them, or some crazy story, because I don't know, it sounded like it was very confusing situation, and I don't know. But anyway, getting back to this Substack newsletter or whatever post, this person had said that there is going to be some sort of an auction, and they're basically, I think it's the Butler family, I think are the people that are coordinating this with whomever this uh, auction company is. I don't know that information, but that they're going to be auctioning off everything from the molds for the Catalina yachts that they've used over the years to their tools that they built the boats with. And also, apparently, there are some half-built boats still sitting around, and some that are actually pretty much finished, but maybe missing a motor or an engine or something. Mostly, it sounds like they're sailboats, but there, I think, are a couple of larger power boats as well. Uh, uh, so, yeah, I mean, I think that means that they're done, and that really breaks my heart because as someone from the generation of learning to sail as a kid back in the mid 70s up all the way up to the early 90s, Catalina's it was such a pervasive model, or company rather, right? You'd see a lot of people where I grew up sailing, there were tons of Catalina 22s, 25s, 27s, eventually some 30s. And they're just kind of I don't know, just iconic boats, right? So, oh my goodness. Yeah, I have a very heavy heart after learning this news. So, anyway, getting back to Gig Harbor Boatworks, they are still manufacturing sailing vessels, albeit smaller ones, of course. And they're celebrating their 40th anniversary this year. And I'd love to get them on the show. I've asked them a few times to come on the show as a guest, but I'm not getting the green light with that quite yet, but I'm going to work on that one for y'all. So I think it'd be really fun to have them on the show and sort of discuss the history of the company and how they've been able to weather the storms of what it's like to sail or to sell or build, manufacture sailing boats. And interestingly, speaking of smaller sailboats, I've been also reaching out to even some people uh, who sell Sunfish. And I've learned all about, because I sort of was on a Sunfish kick here, thinking, you know what, there's a lot of that sort of thing going on here in the Midwest. maybe I could get myself a used Sunfish. Well, then I started learning that, well, you can't just buy any Sunfish, because now apparently the Sunfish International Sunfish Class Association, there's been some um, changes with respect to which boats are class legal to race and which ones aren't. And so there's a whole thing on that. And I would just refer you to the ISCA, International Sunfish Class Association, I think is what it stands for, to learn about what happened with when Laser Performance was running the show for manufacturing Sunfish sailboats. And then there was, I guess, some stuff, let's just call it that, that was a little tough going on. And then now we've got two different builders. Zero Innovations out of Michigan, which is building, has the trademark to build, I believe, the Sunfish sailboat. However, that boat, from what I've learned, is not class legal to race. And so if you're looking to get involved with that, which is what I was thinking I might do, talk about a grandiose dream. But anyway, um, yeah, if you're looking for a class legal, a new boat at least, then you're going to want to look to a builder out of Rhode Island called Zim, Z as in zebra, I M as in Mary. I think it's sailing, and they're the manufacturer for the class legal racing. And in fact, they're not calling them Sunfish anymore. They're just called ISCA, ISCA. So for the International Sunfish Class Association. Again, I think that's what it stands for. So, oh gosh, a lot of crazy stuff. Yeah, and speaking of that, some other news too, just for y'all who are compact people. I would want to do a quick little shout out to Fathom Metalworks. They are, just so people who are looking for parts, if you are looking for parts for your compact, there's a company called Fathom Metalworks that moved in to the old Com-Pac Yachts building down in Clearwater, Florida. And they have many parts available for the boats, and their website, which I'll also include. You can go to the website and see what parts are available. And if you don't see what you want, you can reach out to Noah, who's really nice guy. Really, I've spoken with him myself personally, and I received excellent service, customer service rather. And so, you can ask him if what you're looking for is not on the website, reach out to him. I talked to him on the phone, but you can ask him about getting a hold of what you're looking for. However, the one other thing I would say is if you're looking for new spars, evidently Dwyer used to be the company that made the spars for Com-Pac and then sent them, I think just basically sent them in a very raw form, if you will, and then Com-Pac modified them for each particular model that they went with. So, anyway, the long and the short, the skitty is that Dwyer is evidently no longer supplying those spars, Com-Pac spars. And so, there is another company that someone mentioned on the forum that he is getting a new mast for his Legacy because he evidently ran into something while the boat was on the trailer, which damaged the mast. And so he was able to find an outfit out of Florida. I'll look that up and put it in the show notes for you. A company that was willing to fabricate a mast for him for his Legacy. But yeah, so Dwyer, I think, was sold off recently or in the somewhat recent past. And so I think they have sort of shifted their business model to building spars for like the one design. So like the ILCAs, so that's, I guess, International Laser Class Association. All this stuff I'm just learning about. So if I'm not calling it the right thing, or don't quote me on it, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I think they're doing like 420s and probably the ISCA or the former Sunfish. I don't know. You would have to go to their website to check that all out. But there's just lots of stuff going on in the sailing industry. A lot of it not such happy news though, unfortunately. So yeah, I'm kind of, like I said, at this a little bit of a oh I don't know, feeling a bit stagnant, I guess, in getting myself out on the water because I haven't figured out how to deal with my legacy yet. And also, trying to find maybe a little dinghy sailor to just knock around on little inland lakes that are close. Something I was even thinking, if I could just, avoid a trailer altogether, that would be fabulous. Like how I do with my kayak. It's 10.5 feet. It weighs, I don't know, I think a little under 50 pounds. And I can just, secure it in the back of the pickup bed and off I go. And it's just real easy peasy. So this little Gig Harbor Boatworks model that I wanted to tell you about, this navigator, you can get what's called the ultralight uh, version of this boat, and it only weighs 75 pounds. So you get yourself a little dolly, and you can get this boat in the back of the pickup bed like I'd like to do. Tie it down and get your red flag out to put on the end of it if it sticks over, and off you go. So I would love to get myself one of these little boats, but the problem is, oh my goodness, they are pretty, it's about as much as a legacy cost. So it's like, do I sell this other boat to fund this little sailboat? I don't know. I don't know what to do. I just am feeling a little bit, I will say, I'm just very honest. I actually, one of my listeners told me once that something they appreciate about my podcast is that I am, very honest about all these um, things that I are in my mind, and things that I've done and tried to do, and maybe they didn't work out or whatever. But I mean, I will say it gives me pause when I think about, geez, it would be really cool to just get this little Gig Harbor Boatworks dinghy sailor. And before you sort of think I'm nuts, really, just you have to go look at these boats. They're absolutely beautifully crafted, gorgeous boats. I mean, I can't say enough about them. I really, I really, I'm pretty smitten. So it would be something, like I said, that would give me what I have been searching for ever since I got back into sailing, which is just some sense of independence. Like I so admire all of these solo sailors, especially, it's awesome that there's a bunch of males doing, or guys out there doing it, but I really also appreciate learning about the women that are out there that are doing the doing this, so but realistically speaking, am I going to circumnavigate as a, older middle-aged adult pushing the sixth decade of our life that struggles with long COVID symptoms? I don't know. Never say never, but I don't want to put my life on hold. And I keep waiting for this to happen or that to happen or whatever. All I keep hearing about are people relatively close in age to me or younger having lots of health issues. And it's so true. If you're a young person, people so many times will tell you, just get out there, go small, go now. I think is something kind of what the parties, Lynn and Larry Party, used to say. I think there was more to the saying, but the idea is, don't wait till you get older to go do this. And there's so many stories of people that do wait when they're retirement age, and then they're just not able to do it. But you know what? I will say, on the flip side of that coin, I have heard of a lot of people who are even older than me by far, who are out there circumnavigating and living their dream. So it doesn't mean it can't happen. I just have to ask myself and be truthful and honest with myself. Is this something with my lifestyle that I lead right now, right here? Is this something that I can do? And I think that's really what it all boils down to, is you just have to be honest with yourself. So having said that, I'm going to wrap this up for now. I am looking to get a couple guests on board here in the next week or two. So hopefully that will all pan out as I'm anticipating. But in the meantime, keep up with me on my website at passagesfromtheheart.wordpress.com. And just a little shameless self promotion plug. I created some merch, swag, whatever you want to call it, because my podcast, Passages from the Heart podcast, is proudly sponsoring the 2026 RAID ERIE event. I will also put a link in the show notes for that. If you have not checked that out, consider it. It's in the the vein of the R2K, the Texas 200, the Florida 120. It's not really a race though, and although a lot of those others aren't races, not all of them are, but it's what they call a raid, a mess about. What it's going to be is, I believe, a Thursday to a Sunday. I think it's the 31st of July to August 2nd. I'd have to double check those dates, and I should have done that before I'm sitting here on air telling you all about this, but you can go to the RAID ERIE website, which I will put in the show notes, and you can see exactly what the dates are and what the itinerary will be. But the idea is that everybody arrives with their small sailboat or human-powered boat, like a kayak. It's geared towards trailerable vessels. And they just spend 4 days going from destination to destination and having a good time out in the water. Apparently, some people even do it just on foot. I'm not sure how they get from location to, maybe they're just driving to these different places. I'm not quite sure about that, but I am one of the sponsors for this event. And as such, I created these t-shirts and some note cards and sweatshirts and tote bags. And I'm working on getting that all on my website. And I'm donating a lot of those items to the silent auction for the RAID ERIE event. So be sure to check out it says t-shirts as the link on my website. And you can see some of the, especially for you Com-Pac lovers, there's some Com-Pac designs there that might tickle your fancy, as the saying goes. So check it out. And I hope you're all doing well. And I hope you're really getting out there, out in the water, and just enjoying. So until next time, fair winds. If you are enjoying my podcasts, please consider following and/or subscribing to my show. Your support truly means the world to me, as well as inspires me to keep bringing you stories from others out there with a passion for getting out on the water. Until next time, fair winds.